Broadcasting from Silicon Valley, California, this is Conversations with Jennylyn.
You're watching Conversations with Jennylyn. And a week ago, I shared these two fascinating people with you and promised to bring them back tonight. We have been discussing many things, especially the collapse of the systems that run the world. And tonight, we promised to come back and discuss some of Hollywood. And we decided that we would start with Oprah Winfrey. And my friend Heather on tonight's panel has had the privilege, if that's the right word, to channel her. And so tonight we thought Sean and Heather could share the ways that they have experienced, either through downloads or through facts, to show that the systems are collapsing and what they've been shown about some of the people in Hollywood that we've all at some point in our lives had on pedestals. Sean and Heather, welcome back.
Hi, good to be back.
Always one of my
Thanks for having me back.
things to do on a Saturday night is to spend time with you two. So Heather, why don't we start with you and what you have channeled, and you can start where you want with this.
Okay, well, I should probably just start by saying that I haven't always been a channel. So I started channeling about 4 years ago. I started with getting psychic downloads for strangers in public, and it progressed to channeling. And I have a group of these cosmic beings that I channel that are here to help us on our human journey. And before that, I worked in a corporate banking and was very beat down. I was not connected to my higher guidance. I didn't even know I had a soul. I didn't know any of this stuff. And when I left corporate America, which I know you've done videos on that and it's on my website too, but that's when I was visited by two light beings. I started channeling. So my guides told me last year that it was time to start sharing what I was channeling with the collective. I channel soul contracts and people's life blueprint. Your soul creates a soul contracts with people and experiences, including trauma, in order to evolve, in order to learn, and in order to learn what you need to learn so you can help other people here from that knowledge. And we create a life blueprint for ourselves. So that's what I do in my day job. But my guides told me to start channeling or start sharing these messages that I'm getting from clients. But they told me to get on TikTok and start channeling Hollywood, which I have no interest in for the most part. We all hear about people, or performers or famous people. And we might be curious about them, but I didn't know why they wanted me to channel Hollywood. And now they've told me it's to help with the awakening. So one of the people that I channeled was Oprah. The first person I channeled and put on TikTok was Britney Spears. And that's been kind of an ongoing thing that I now feel very connected to. Poor thing. But when I channeled Oprah, I never know what to expect when I channel. I have no idea what they're going to bring in. And what they showed me, I think this might have been the first person I channeled where I started really realizing what Hollywood is about. And this was the point of me they wanted me to channel this stuff. So what they showed me is that in general, when people rise to fame and fortune, and this isn't just with Hollywood, this is politics, people like Bill Gates, anybody who is making a lot of money and in the public eye, they sign contracts in order to rise to fame and fortune. They're allowed fame and fortune in exchange for being the face of certain agendas. And my guides are starting to show me that it's not just to be faces of certain agendas. It's to be the face of a cause. So if anything goes sideways, that person takes the fall and not the people above them, which are giving them these things to do. So they're the scapegoat, but for the most part, a lot of these people are living in, with lots of money, being able to do whatever they want to do in exchange for fame and in exchange for doing things that are nefarious. So when I channeled Oprah, what they showed me was that when she first signed her contract, she was very, very eager. And they showed me as a young woman signing contracts, and how everyone's contracts are a little bit different. To make this make sense, there are contracts that are more benign, and as you do what you're asked to do, then they rewrite the contract and it becomes a little bit more nefarious. And then you meet that contract and then they give you more money and fame, but then you have to sign a new contract that's even more nefarious. And so for Oprah, they said that she signed basically contracts that were started more benign in the beginning. And then when she started rising to fame and fortune and doing what they asked her to do, they got more nefarious. And they showed me that she absolutely loves being the face that she loves the fame and fortune that she has. She loves being the person that's beloved around the globe. You know, her talk shows, all the things that she's done, for the most part, she's shown as this really giving, supportive person, you know, giving things away to people, writing books about spirituality, etc. But what they showed me is that she actually, it's hard for me to say. They actually showed me that she connects predators with prey. She actually connects innocent people and children with predators, for one, and that many of her causes, like I channeled for Bill Gates a few weeks ago, many of her causes are just fronts for other things. And so what they do, and they show me this with Oprah first, what these people that are operating the globe, the powers that were, low-level management over Hollywood, what they do is they say, we're going to allow you to become this certain person to gain love and respect from the community. So Oprah loves the fact that they've allowed her to create a global following, right? Or global following. People get mad when I reference whether the earth is flat or round. So a worldwide following, or people love and adore her. But then underneath, what's really going on is she's actually doing nefarious things, connecting nefarious people, and what they with innocent people, for one. And what they showed me is that she actually has no problem doing that. They have shown me other people do similar things, and they're struggling with that, or they don't want to do it anymore. Many of them are gone now. Many of them have OD'd, fallen off their balconies, but she loves it. And what she does is when she's helping people, my guide said that when she's helping people, writing spiritual books, bringing people on, it's first of all, it's very narcissistic. It really is all about her. And if you go back and watch her earlier shows, you'll see. I watched a few and I'm like, oh yeah, it's not about the person. This is about, it's the Oprah show. But she feels like she's doing good. And they said that in her mind, she thinks that's her atonement. She understands spiritual laws. She understands karma, sort of. She thinks that if she's doing this very nefarious things, so hard for me to talk about this. If she's doing nefarious things, if she's also doing good over here, writing books, helping people get in a home, giving people cars, whatever, she believes it's balancing out what she's doing, which is why you can't really tell that she's struggling. What they showed me, like struggling with what she's being asked to do, which many people are struggling with it. As our consciousness raises and people start waking up, people in Hollywood, famous people, celebrities, famous people around the globe, politicians, etc., some of them are starting to struggle and not be okay with what they've been asked to do, and it's causing discord. She didn't feel that way. But when the Maui thing happened, what they showed me, this is where this first started with my channeling of Oprah. What they showed me was that she didn't go out of the goodness of her heart. She didn't call the rock and say, hey, let's go do something. She was called by the people above her. They said, this is something for you. We're calling your favor in, right? This is an agenda that Oprah's face needs to be used. They also called the rock in, and they went and tried to create a certain narrative about what was going on and ask for money. And we saw how that happened. It didn't go over well, right? And since it went over so poorly, she was then asked onto a talk show, which is her friend, right? She was asked onto a friend's talk show to like explain herself. And my guides told me to go on and watch a little bit of the video so I understood what was going on. She was seeking, like, she was like, oh, look at me, I'm a victim. Look at what people are just, I remember she said something like, I don't, look what the world's coming to. What's happened with the world? This is her complete illusion of herself being untouchable. And so what they showed me is that because of the level that she's been vibrating on, which is very low level, with this false light, because she thinks it's going to balance her karma for the bad deeds, because she's been vibrating such a low level, it's all starting to come to the surface. And when I channeled what she did around Maui, what my guides showed me was that the people above Hollywood who manage these contracts said, we're not sure if Oprah's an asset anymore. We're going to have to see where the pieces fall, but this is such a backlash. We're not sure if we can use her. And they're not able to really use her anymore. So now she's on the run, they said. I haven't channeled her in a few weeks, but she's terrified. She is scared. She's trying to use her money and her power to buy like herself to be hit. She's trying to hide. She's trying to get special treatment. And what they showed me when I channeled this a month or two ago, they said that she's trying to buy herself out of the situation. But as the planet increases in consciousness, she's not finding people who want to help her. And so she's really struggling. She's really freaking out. And what they said is, whatever award show happened in a month or two ago, I don't remember what it was, where they showed Oprah, that's not Oprah. Just like the man known as Biden isn't Biden. They have actors, they have all kinds of ways to like create illusion of things. But what they're saying is the illusion is cracking. So right now she's on the run. And what they said is that her money, all of the money she has, is not helping her right now, which is a good wake-up call for people. Just because you've got a lot of money doesn't mean you can buy yourself out of the situation you're in, especially when the planet's consciousness is raising and it's not allowing these things to be hidden anymore. All right, so that's in a nutshell what I channel about Oprah.
Okay, so before I bring you on, Sean, I have to say, today I channeled Jesus, and it was a very powerful channel. And something you said resonated with what he told me. He said they have to tell us what they're doing because it's a karmic law. And the way they do it is by giving us false narratives in the news, which I also did a show on Tucker Carlson this week. And they put it in movies and little documentaries and stuff because they are obligated to tell us what's really going on. Sean, what do you want to say to all this?
Well, I could give some examples about what you just said about how they have to tell you what they're doing before they do it because they have a superstition that as long as they tell you, then they don't have to deal with the karmic retribution.
Exactly. That's what he told me.
And there was an example of this. Some of you may have even heard it because it was pretty recent, but it's like a luxury clothing brand, shoe brand called Balenciaga.
Yes.
And it's ran by pedophiles. And in some of their ad campaigns, they show like baby dolls being dressed up in like sex toys and sex straps, like sex restraints. And they got a lot of a backlash about one of these ads. It went viral. People were like, that's disgusting. We're never going to support that company. But that's an example of them showing you that, hey, like this company is supporting pedophilia and it's probably ran by pedophiles. It's financed by pedophiles. And it's like, that's like them saying, hey, look, this is what we're doing. And we told you, so if you don't come after us, it's no longer on our hands because we showed it to you. And it's like, okay, you're not doing anything, then we're good. So that's just one example. But this has been going on. Like if you start watching TV films and movies and cartoons from back in the 90s and start looking at the covers of like the Economist magazine and different magazine covers, you'll start seeing all these things that are hidden in plain sight. And you'll look back and be like, oh yeah, that happened and that happened and that happened. And you'll see it's kind of like these forecasts, and that's their way of relieving themselves of the karmic retribution.
It's so strange because he told me that today. He also told me that the governments are not running the country. So much of what you both have been sharing today, I got confirmation directly from Jesus. So I'll encourage people to go and watch that video. But Sean, you have been saying these things. That's how you got my attention. You were saying religion. He also said religion is a business. That's how he put it today. I mean, it was like I could hear both of your voices. I'm like, I just needed this. I know you're telling the truth, but and maybe the questions I asked him had to do with what I've been hearing from you and I've shared with people, and I see you get beat up for it, Sean. I think you get more beat up than Heather, because she has a different way of bringing the information where you just come out and go, you're being made fools of. There's, you just say it matter of factly. You can't believe what they're telling you. Religion is whatever. And so I think that watching both of you sort of helped me prepare the questions, which I didn't have questions prepared. As the interview flowed, these questions were given to me by my guides to ask, which in my opinion, looking back now, this is what mankind needs to hear. Hearing it from you and Heather, people question because they don't know who you are, how you're getting the information, but hearing it from Jesus, I'm telling you, there'll still be people who will question it. So Sean, how many of the people that have attacked you, have you been able to track how many of them now see what you're saying? Because Jesus told me that some people will never see. Doesn't matter what you tell them, they won't see. And here's what he explained to me. If enough people don't wake up, what is happening with the people, based on all that we know and we see, is they're becoming angry and scared. And with anger and fear, they're lowering the vibration even more. And so they are trying to bring light in on the planet to help us, but we are blocking it because of the level of anger and fear that's taking place on the planet right now. Sean, have you been seeing this with the people that interact with you?
Well, I've absolutely been seeing a lot of that, especially the ones that have been heavily indoctrinated and have emotional attachments to the dogmas and superstitions that were implanted into them by the corporate religious industrial complex. So all the religions are corporations, like what you said earlier. And what you need to understand about these is that there is a tax form called the 501c. And when these religions fill this tax form out, this is how they create their corporate status and get lots of tax benefits and things like that. So they are, almost every single one of them is acting as a corporation, and they're siphoning money. But yeah, a lot of the people that grew up in these cults, they are very emotionally attached, to the extent that they have based their eternity on these dogmas and superstitions. They have based their family's eternity on these dogmas and superstitions. They will even fight, and some of them will kill or be killed for these dogmas and superstitions. So some of these people, they lose control of their emotions. They get extremely emotionally triggered when people start coming on social media and start basically blowing the whistle about how the religious corporate industrial complex functions and how it's all used to mind control people and take their money. And I mean, I've been called everything from demon possessed, a Satanist, the devil, evil, a blasphemer, and the list goes on and on and on. But that's just these people that are, reacting emotionally to me triggering them by presenting information that doesn't fit into the narratives that they've been brainwashed into believing and that they've been emotionally attached to. So this is, and again, this is one of those paradigms where it's like, yes, it may be lowering their vibration at first, but it's almost like I feel like people have to get knocked out of their comfort zone before they see the light and become awakened to the truth about how religions are just corporations and how there's an entire industrial complex built out of this that literally siphons billions and billions and billions of dollars from billions of people. And it's also intertwined with the government, because the religion of statism is the religion where the government is God and authority comes from the government. And that's actually the largest, most dominant religion. And it's all intertwined, even on the money that the government is issued to print, and we have to use the government's money. It says, "In God we trust." So in my country, in America, they've actually intertwined two religions to mind control people on a mass level. They've intertwined Christianity, which is a religion based on monotheism and patriarchy. And then they've intertwined that monotheism and patriarchy with statism, which is the religion where the government is God, which also kind of fits into the patriarchy narrative, because every single president has always been a man. So they've combined them, and most people most of the Christians I've noticed, they think they're only practicing one religion, but they're actually practicing two religions, because the same way where the church is siphoning money from people through penances, tithings, and donations, well, the religion of statism, their religious temples, which is the public school and the state capitol buildings in Washington, D.C., the White House, they're siphoning donations and penances and tithings under the guise of taxation. And most of these Christians are paying more money in taxes to the government than they're donating to the Christian churches. So it's just a very complex and sophisticated dynamic that they've used to mind control people.
Especially when today Jesus told me, it's so weird that everything you're saying is so like hand in the glove with what he told me. When in truth and in fact, what we call the government is not the government. It's a whole different structure, elite structure that is running the world, and they are just a front. Heather.
Yeah. Okay. Can I come? I want to comment on what
Yeah.
Sean was saying.
Yes, go ahead.
First of all, I was channeling a little bit because you asked like how many people, something like how many people, you know, that originally come on his channel and spew hate, how many of them are like changing minds. And my guide said about 20 to 30% rolling, because what they showed me was that Sean is just one of many that is here to trigger people, right? He's here to trigger people. When you're tripped or triggered, it causes you to look at things differently. And so what he's doing is he's opening people's minds. And when your belief systems that you've had your whole life or whatever they are challenged, it creates fear. Because it's like the reptilian brain, the fear, flight, or fight. Oh shoot, everything that I've learned to be, everything that's in my reality or my belief systems are starting to be questioned. What does that mean for me? What does that mean for my reality? What does that mean about anything else in my life? Is anything real? And so there's this resistance to even be open to it. But what they're saying is that the people that come and get really triggered by Sean, 20 to 30% of them are, what that does is it creates this, like, I don't know how to show it. It's almost like, I have a drawing right here that's almost similar. It creates something in their energetic field. It like opens a door that wasn't open before, which allows other things to start coming in. So they might hear someone in the reality talking about it as well. There might be a book that drops in their lap or YouTube. So Sean is waking people up by triggering people's, belief systems. And when he does that, it gives the opportunity for other things to come in that align with what he's sharing, and 20 to 30% of those people end up starting to see truth. And they might come back to Sean's channel, or they might start researching on their own, but he's creating the opening for that. So that they're saying just like 2020, there was a massive control campaign. I'm sure everybody knows what I'm talking about. Where everyone was getting poked, right? It's control. It's the term that Sean says, that say the term, Sean.
Hegelian dialectic. Yeah.
So that, right? So create a problem, already have a solution aligned. So that whole mayhem and this thing that happened in 2020 and has continued to go on, that actually woke a lot of people up. That was the catalyst for waking people up. They're saying Sean does that. That's what Sean's doing, right? And so those people might never come back on his channel and say, just so you know, 6 months ago, I wanted to burn you to the ground because you really triggered me. And now that just opened the door for more for truth to come in. So thank you. He might never hear of that, but it's happening. He's triggering people to allow, and that allows more information to come in. And on the topic of religion, that's one of the things my guides say is religion is one of the glues that holds all these systems together, right? Why do we have to participate in them? Well, church tells you why, right? But when church started failing, number one, because people's consciousness started raising, and it was impossible to hide how certain areas of religious churches are very toxic with abuse, right? That started coming out with social media. It's helping for more truth to come out. When religion started failing, because what they're showing me is you go to church and you sit and someone tells you stuff. He tells you stuff, right? And they tell you, if you don't believe this or you don't live this way, you're going to go to hell. So they use hell and all that stuff as a a guide to get people to do what they want them to do. When people started questioning that, they created Hollywood. So they're like, okay, well, this isn't working to force this down people's throat. They're starting to see through this. So they created Hollywood and created these people that the globe worships, right? And politicians are in there. Anybody famous, right? Anybody who rises to massive fame and fortune is part of this. They are used as tools to create belief systems. They're marketing medicines. They're marketing insurance. They're marketing banks, right? They are using these people to promote certain agendas where religion started failing, right? So you have to question, okay, religion was started failing, so then you created this false shiny object that isn't real either. And since there's so much energy being funneled into that, what they're showing me is like, especially with like performers, etc., performers like the big ones are harvesting energy. For one, it's so off balance that it's starting to crumble. These things, people are starting to see this stuff. It's starting to crumble. So just like religion was starting to crumble, Hollywood's starting to crumble, and some of these things are just coming out, and it's impossible to not pay attention to. And you're only going to see it on social media, or you're not going to see it in the media, because that's very controlled. They're not going to show you anything that's going to help you know truth on Google, media, etc.
So Sean, today when I was channeling Jesus, it's like you were sitting on his shoulder talking to me, because the most bizarre thing is some of what I had watched with you, even I wasn't clear on it either. And I always have this notion to call you one day and just say, Sean, these are things I need clarification on. And I know how busy you are and you're traveling, and I don't feel like I have the right to just call you and ask you that. I need to set it up with you. And it was my intention to do that. And then it just so happens that these are all the things he clarified for me today. And the one thing that I see that people really beat you up about is those things that have been grounded in us as children, like the Bible. You get a lot of attack for the Bible. And that's why I asked him if the Bible is a book that we could really depend on. And I know that you and Heather will watch my video, but I'm bringing these things up for someone who won't watch that video. And he told me, yes, the Bible has been messed with a lot of times to manipulate us. So, and the strange thing is, I grew up very spiritual, and I did a lot of Bible study. And when I would go home and I would have homework to do, I'd never do it, because I couldn't read the book and make sense of it. And they tell me, flip to this chapter and then go to that chapter. And I'm like, why do you have to be flipping all over the book to get the story? Who would write a book that's incomprehensive and want you to keep studying it? So I stopped doing it, and I would never tell them I wasn't doing it. So I got clarification on that. And today, when he told me, when he clarified this for me, I thought of you, because you always knew where to go and how to answer. My question to you is, how did you know? Did you study it? How do you know what to tell them?
So the way that I know these things is because, as part of my mission and my contract to do what I'm doing here, I was incarnated into a very heavily indoctrinated community. So I got to witness all of it. Everything that the corporate religious industrial complex was doing to mind control people, I grew up in that. And I realized it even before I was a teenager. So I had a very advanced awareness of this before I was a teenager, and I always knew. And then as I progressed through my teens, my 20s, and just continuing my journey, I've always had this intuition, and there's some kind of higher power or something has been guiding me to learn the things that I needed to learn, find the books I needed to find, make the connections with the researchers I needed to make the connections with, so that I would have been able to figure it out and connect all the dots along the way. But for anyone who wants to do their own research and do a little bit of digging themselves, Look up the archaeologist named George Smith in the 1800s. He discovered an ancient library in the city of Nineveh in the Middle East, and this library was put together by an Assyrian king named Ashurbanipal. Ashurbanipal amassed a very well-organized library of cuneiform tablets with all the stories in the Old Testament Bible, from the creation and the fall of man to the deluge. And in the cuneiform account, they call it the Atrahasis. We have the Tower of Babel, all kinds of stuff. Like all these myths and stories from the Bible proved to actually have been basically like plagiarized or taken from these older sources, which are these cuneiform tablets written. And cuneiform is a writing style that includes all the letters in the English language. And it's, in fact, one of the most ancient writings we even know of. And even those tablets discovered in Ashurbanipal's library are said to be copies from earlier sources dating back before the deluge. So we're talking going back like, 10,000 years plus some of the history. And it's an incredibly complex timeline dating back even over 200,000 years, because in Ashurbanipal's library, one of the things they discovered was the ancient Sumerian kings list, which is a genealogy record of royalty dating back hundreds of thousands of years. And a lot of this stuff is still untranslated. Like there's so many cuneiform tablets, like there's still like tens of thousands that need to be translated. So there's an enormous amount of ancient history that's referencing advanced technology, genetic engineering, spaceships, anti-gravity technology, advanced building, and architectural kind of technology, different royalties, different bloodlines, with an incredibly complex genealogy record that's dating back way farther than the narrative that the corporate religious industrial complex is trying to get everyone to believe in, which is a narrative that dates back around 6,000 years. Well, with all these these discoveries of these ancient libraries and the uncovering of all these ancient cities over the past few hundred years that were only said to be myth or mythology, well, archaeologists keep discovering more and more and more and more and more, and it's no longer mythology. We have an enormous amount of evidence that, I mean, I'd say there's so much overwhelming evidence for this. Like it almost proves that there has been extraterrestrial and alien interventions on the Earth world in regards to things like genetic experiments, messing with DNA, tampering with DNA, creating hybrids, cross-breeding, cloning. There's been wars. There's been advanced weapons technology used against the humans. There's been depopulation agendas, eugenics, even things like chemtrails, and all that stuff is found in these ancient writings. So when you start studying this stuff, what you realize is there's nothing new under the sun. And all these things that these evil controllers, which I believe are connected to the Nephilim bloodlines, that all these things they're doing to us, like the depopulation agendas, poisoning of the food, the starvation, the famines, the endless wars, the economic crashes, the chemtrails, the fluoride in the water, they've been doing this stuff for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And this is how they've been able to control us for so long. But now, because of the internet and our ability to share information at the speed of light, and all these archaeological discoveries that continue to happen more and more, and then the sharing of the archaeological discoveries on social media, and just being able to go on the internet and look up, some tutorials on how to translate cuneiform or how to translate Greek and Hebrew, and seeing what the Bible says in the King James Version, then comparing it to older copies, you see that it's been incredibly manipulated and twisted. And what the corporate religious industrial complex is doing is they've been cherry picking certain sections of the Bible. And then when everyone goes into their church buildings, they share what they've cherry picked and then add in a bunch of lies and propaganda and deceit, like these things like the rapture and you're going to go to hell when you die and all this stuff. And what they're doing is they're betting against you reading it for yourself and then comparing it to the older translations. They want you to just go into the church building, get fed by the propaganda machine, which is the pastor and the pope up there on the podium, and then just think that, oh, that's it. It's truth. It came from the church, without ever reading it and studying it for yourself. So it's incredibly sophisticated and complex with how far back our history goes, and incredibly complex with all the interventions of advanced races coming to the Earth world for all kinds of different agendas.
You know what surprises me is that powers that were, according to Heather, have not destroyed them. I'm surprised they're still around and they haven't gotten their hands and gotten disposed of them, because with those gone, we are
I
total.
think you're
You're freezing up a little bit.
you're freezing.
Okay, Heather?
Oh, I was just gonna say, it's because my guides have shown me about the Bible. I've done videos on this too. What they show me is like the man behind the curtain, like Wizard of Oz. You know, once you see, they show me what's happening behind the scenes. And what they showed me is that, for instance, the Bible. It's not just the Bible, but for instance, if we use the Bible for example, over centuries, whoever is in power, right, gets to dictate what we read, right? There have been times when books have been burned, right? They try to hide and burn the things that are going to cause us to know who we really are and what's really going on here. So with the Bible, you know, over the centuries that it's been written, or thousands of years that it's been around, whoever's in charge of lower level, it's lower level management, it's not the powers that work, because low level, whoever's in charge, they choose what goes in or out of the books. Just like in school, you know, history is written by the winners, and they dictate what you're going to study in school. And we never have been taught to question anything. We're taught to not question, or we're conspiracy theorists, which is a term the CIA came up with in order to keep people to shut up, right? So that the collective can gaslight people so that they no longer speak truth. But what happens with the Bible is that they said that books have been taken out, things have been added in, lies, etc., and then they stir the pot up, and then they take pieces of that and put it in a book and they put it out. And whoever's in control, like Roman Empire or whatever has been going on the last 1,000 years, they get to dictate what comes out. You know, so when you read the Bible, it feels, for instance, one of the themes is very patriarchy. You know, it's very about the patriarchy. You know, it's very, which when you think about God or source or what's really, you know, what's really going on here, you know, the creator of everything, do you really think that the creator is choosing one gender over another, or one skin color over another, or that there's actually, that they actually support slaves versus people who own slaves? No, that was all created and put in the Bible during the times that they needed people to accept what they were forcing down their throats. So when you start to do your own research, and I was going to say this earlier, I'm going to say it again, or I'm going to say it now, I say it in all my videos, don't take our word for it. Don't take any of our words for it. Go do your own research. Why are you sitting in church allowing how is that person more qualified than you to get information from your higher self or from source? How is that person more qualified? They went to school and got a certificate. They can translate the Bible better than you. Like, why are you allowing someone to tell you how to live, but then you're not going to, when you hear someone like Sean sharing what he studied, right, from reading many books and doing his own research and determining truth for himself, why would you not go and do your own research? Why would you not go and read those books? What you're saying is, I would rather be told how to live and how to think and what to believe than becoming an autonomous sovereign being and choosing what I want to believe, right? And how are those beliefs serving you? How is going to, this isn't about poo-pooing church. This is about the systems in general. If your belief systems are causing you anxiety, if your belief systems are causing you to make choices that bring you fear and hate and worry, then that's what you need to do, is start analyzing what belief systems need to go. And that comes from doing your own research, read some of these books for yourself, and then make up your mind what you believe. But if you keep going, if you keep watching the news, and I'm hearing these people who are in political positions, which they have no power. They have literally no power. There's low-level management on this globe, and we're not going to probably maybe know most of it ever. They are the ones who own the politicians, right? They're the ones who tell them what to say, what to do. And it all comes from the same place. It doesn't matter if it's red or blue. It's all from the same place. So you're going to turn on the news and listen to what a politician says, and then you're going to go to church and listen to what church says, right? It starts in school. It starts with your parents. So your whole life, you've been letting people tell you what to believe. Take your life in your own hands and go do research, you know, instead of blowing Sean up because he's sharing what he's learned from doing lots of research. Go do it yourself, because your mind is going to be changed on your own. And that happens a lot. I know people personally that in 2020, they believed one side of the narrative, and they, in order to prove that side of the narrative was real, they went to go do research so they could present the facts to their family and friends, and their own research changed their mind when they realized, oh, the narrative we're being fed is not real, because they didn't know the research. So don't take our word for it. Go do your own research, empower yourself. Stop being, in Sean's terms, an NPC robot. Stop being an NPC player and go take control of your life and do the research and then make up your mind what you want to believe.
And so here's a question, a thought-provoking question for anybody watching this show. What has Sean and Heather got to gain? You go to the church, they want your money. They need your money or you're going to burn in hell. God gave them a dream that you need to make a contribution because they need a new jet. I saw it. I was watching a minister that I used to watch on Sunday mornings say this, and that was it for me. I was out of there. But we are not asking you for anything. We are just trying to help you wake up from the lies that we've been fed. And just so you guys know, Jesus told me today about the 5 cities. He did. He said, he told me, and people, please go watch that video. He said they're trying to create these cities that do not include the middle class and the lower class. And that a lot of the storms that we've been seeing, people think it's a government causing it, but it's them. They are trying to purge all the poisons and stuff that's being put in the air and put in our food to protect us. Because the other ways they could help us, they're being blocked because of the anger and all that. So people, why else would we be here doing this? I would like to save as many people from the disasters that they are creating for us because they have an agenda to be rid of us because we don't qualify to live in their little dynasties that they're creating around the world. Sean, I'll be back with you in a second, but Heather, can you ask your guides, because there have been a lot of talk that Oprah is connected to those fires, at least in Maui, and I read somewhere Santa Barbara. Can you ask your guides if she was connected to those fires in Maui? Because apparently Maui was burnt out to create a city. So one of the cities. So I'd be interested to hear what your guides say on this.
Yeah, so here's what my guides say. Go higher than that. So like I talked about in the beginning, Oprah's just an example, but it's one of the darkest ones I've seen when I've channeled. She was allowed, like many others, to rise to fame and fortune in exchange for using her brand to manipulate the masses, right? So this is bigger than fires. So they're not answering the question about the fires. They don't, because they're saying that's low level, go higher. She's the face of agendas. You can say very nefarious agendas. And when the powers that were above her, low level management on the globe, when they ask her to be the face for something, she just jumps at the chance because she knows she's excited to do it because they give her opportunities that make people love her. And she loves to be loved. So she is connected to many nefarious things. She knows to some extent the nefarious things that are running the planet, right? She knows of the dark. She's part of it. She helps facilitate it. So with the fires, for instance, what they're saying is that not only is she understand what's going on and part of it, but not just the fires, it's many other things. She doesn't look at the world. She doesn't look at reality from the perspective that she's one of us, right? That she's one of everyone else. She looks at this like many of the fame and fortune people, billionaires like Bill Gates, whatever hundreds of millions of dollars in billionaires, they're allowed to get to that level because they're faces of agendas. She doesn't look at herself in the same boat as everyone else. She looks at herself as above all of this, and she's happy to be part of facilitating this trauma and mayhem because she knows it's going to get her more fame and fortune and more love. She's addicted to being looked at from a positive place. What they want to say is about the fires, though, is that they tell me when people ask questions like this, they ask me questions about certain specific things about people, and what they say is that stuff doesn't matter. It actually doesn't matter if the world is flat around. It actually doesn't matter if we landed on the moon. Go higher. Once you realize we've been lied to you about things like that, you can start to say, all right, I'm ready to know more truth, right? And start to move through the phases of grief and get to the place where you start envisioning the world that you want. So when you look at the fires in Maui, we haven't been shown in mass media. That same type of fire has happened in many other places over the last few years. I think most recently,
It just
Chile.
happened in Chile. It just happened in Chile this week. Same thing.
Right. What a coincidence. That's interesting. So what they're saying, what they would rather have people understand is that we're in a very critical time right now, where if you're watching the news and you're getting angry and in fear, well, let me just show you what I drew today for my video. If you're watching the news and you're in anger and fear, you are participating in this lower vibration, and you are going to manifest more of that earth. If you disconnect from that and you start envisioning love and acceptance and forgiveness and joy, and you start raising your vibration, you're going to start creating a world of harmony. Okay, they call that the love earth, and then they call this other one the fear earth. So when you look around and you see this destruction that is on purpose, these aren't natural disasters for the most part. When you start seeing that happening, start envisioning what you want. Don't get hung up on the details of who's doing it, why are they doing it, what are they going to do. That keeps you in a low vibration and causes you to be in fear. Instead, say, you know what, I'm going to envision freedom and love and joy and happiness for everyone. I unplug from Hollywood. Stop listening to billionaires. Stop listening to multi-hundred millionaires. They are bought. They are controlled. In exchange for money, they have to create certain narratives. So don't worry. It doesn't matter who's in charge of that stuff. Yes, she's connected to those things, but don't get hung up on those details, because then you start operating a lower vibration, and then you wonder why all you see is destruction. It's because you are now operating on the level of that destruction. You can literally start to see a new reality in your own reality and as a collective when you start to get out of those details. If you feel yourself in fear and anger and you want justice and retribution, you are contributing to manifesting more of that on the planet. So get out of it and say, you know what, that's not for me. I'm not going to contribute that to anymore. I trust that karma is working, balance is coming, but I don't want to manifest any of the negative stuff into my life. So in a nutshell, the people that are the richest at the top of the globe, they know what's going on. They know, okay? Oprah knows, Gates knows. These people know what's going on. They know what really happened in Maui. They know what the plan is, right? They're lower than low level management. The low level management over Hollywood, they have the plans. They know all the pages in the book. They know why the fires were done, right? It's not just for land, it's for other things. Don't get hung up on those details, because you will start to see more of that. And we're splitting right now. Like, people who want to live in harmony and balance and love and acceptance and joy and happiness and camaraderie and collaboration, we're going to end up in that environment if you choose to disconnect from needing to know all those details. Because when we think we need to know the details, that brings us down, and then we start to see more of that. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, 100%. John?
Yeah, still here.
So what do you think about, what are your thoughts, or what have you heard about these cities?
So there is a lot of stuff going around that these people who are attempting to control the world, one of their plans was to build these things called 15-minute cities, which are basically going to be like prisons where, you're not allowed to leave unless the government says so, and you'll have to like scan a QR code with your digital ID to get in and out of the city, and the government will decide whether or not you're allowed to ever leave. And I think what might be happening with these wildfires, which are actually just direct energy weapons, is they need to destroy infrastructure so that they can rebuild it with their 15-minute city. And they've been actually doing this for like a very long time. I mean, the direct energy weapon stuff, again, this is ancient technology. It's not new. Whenever they want to build some kind of new infrastructure, they just destroy the old infrastructure by whatever means necessary. Right now, I think the most convenient way is with these direct energy weapons. And then right before they do it, they'll pass some different laws and things, so everything is in their favor. They'll even they'll basically kick people out of their land, the ones that survived the direct energy weapon attack. They'll give them like just a little bit enough money to get by for a couple months, but not enough money to rebuild their home. So that way they're forced to move out and go somewhere else. That way they can rebuild their, they can rebuild it with their 15-minute cities. But I mean, this, and again, like this isn't me just making this stuff up. Like if you ever listen to some of the stuff that they say at the World Economic Forum, like they straight up tell you what they're planning to do. Like they run billboards saying you will own nothing and be happy. And they run propaganda campaigns for these 15-minute cities. They run propaganda campaigns for digital IDs, health passes, social credit systems. And what they want is, I believe their end goal, which, and I don't think they're going to succeed at this because people are waking up way too fast. But I think, part of their end goal is to rebuild the infrastructure in a way that gives them full control and surveillance over everything you do, everything you think, everything you buy, and restrict your movement to where they, basically, within a 15-minute radius. And the only time you're allowed to leave is you have to ask the government's permission. And this whole system will all be pulling data from what's called smart technology. So the 15-minute cities will be smart cities. You'll have a smart city, a smartphone, a smart car. Everything will be electric so they can turn you off anytime they want. And all these smart appliances that you have will be all connected to one big centralized server, which will be monitored by an AI. And it's going to be like the social credit system where, again, if you post something on Facebook that the government doesn't like, they're going to turn off your money and say, oh, you're not allowed to leave within the 15-minute city. You're not allowed to buy food from the grocery store for a day or two because you criticize the government on social media. Don't do that again. They're going to lower your credit score. And that's what I believe their end goal is. I don't think it's going to succeed, but you can see very clearly that they're trying to do this. And if, again, go watch some of the videos of Klaus Schwab, the chairman and president of the World Economic Forum. Go listen to some of the people that speak at the World Economic Forum. They literally tell you what they plan to do before they do it. And then you can see the steps that they're taking to accomplish this, later down the line. It's called Agenda 2030. Look up Agenda 2030. But that's what's going on. And, you just gotta read between the lines and have the cognitive awareness to connect the dots with what's being said on the mainstream media and with what's happening behind the scenes in terms of legislation and in terms of like any kind of laws and things that are passing. Like you'll see, like they're putting everything in place specifically for this Agenda 2030. So don't take my word for it. Do your own research.
Like Heather said, we all, and like Jesus pointed out today, we need to live, we need to raise the vibration by being happy. But then ignorance is not good either. So we need to stay informed and not like delve into what we're hearing that's not good, but we need to be aware, because while I was asleep, I wish I could go back and turn the hands of the clock back, because I've been pulled in this direction since I was a younger woman, and I was afraid of it. So I kept pushing it away and going, oh, that's just so moo-moo, so scary. Nah, it sounded so like off the charts. And then I had something happen in my life that forced me, sort of what happened to you, Heather. I had this catastrophe that I think now had to happen to get me here. And then once I decided to concede and I started to be open and do the homework and educate myself, my life changed. So this is clearly what they were trying to get me. And I've learned so much that I wish I had known these things earlier in my life. But based on both of your experience and your knowledge, because I had a previous segment with Jesus, and I had asked him if they would intercede because the war is getting out of control, the genocide is getting out of control. And I asked him if they would just intercede and stop it before it's gotten to where it is. And he said, unfortunately, it's going to get worse before it gets better. because they can't help because of the reasons I mentioned earlier. Sean, based on what you know and from your experience so far, do you think that all of this awareness is going to make a change anytime soon, or do you think it's going to be a long time? It's going to get worse in terms of angry people lashing out at us for the information we're bringing because it's not popular and because it somehow is like devastating for them because a belief structure that some of them have lived with for 70, 80 years, we are challenging and we're saying, hey, are you sure? Because that's not the truth.
I do think that things are going to get more chaotic because I just see it as it's part of the process of the awakening. And in order for us to create a new paradigm, the old paradigm has to crumble. And as that old paradigm crumbles, things get very chaotic, and old systems that people have been relying on, they go offline. They no longer become available. And as these old systems no longer become available, this is where, we have the chaos. And I also think that based off the stuff that these controllers have done in the past, I think they're going to try and do it again. And what happened in 2020, economic crash, the intentional impoverishing of people, consolidation of wealth through fraudulent mortgages and foreclosures, and consolidation of small businesses, and all those things. I think they're going to try and do it again. And I think it's probably going to be, and I'm not guaranteeing this. This is just a risk. It's not a forecast. It's a risk. When we get closer to the election time, or in the last quarter of 2024, the third and fourth quarter, these controllers, they know that the people are waking up exponentially, and they have to rig the voting systems to get their puppets in power. But ever since 2020, and then also the release of the documentary called 2000 Mules, which exposed the voter fraud, more people are awake and aware of the voter fraud. And I think they fear that they're not going to be able to pull off a fraudulent election. So I think what they're going to try to do is they're going to try to create as much chaos as possible: civil wars, economic collapse, power outages, food shortages, supply chain disruptions, internet outages, cyber attacks. The banking systems might go offline, false flag attacks, letting all these refugees in through the southern border to create chaos, like what they do with Antifa and BLM. I think they're going to try to cause as much chaos as possible so that they can declare a state of national emergency and postpone the election because it's a state of national emergency, and that will allow them to keep their puppets in power for longer. So again, that's a risk that I think we should all be aware of and take into consideration.
Have you guys watched the interview with Tucker Carlson and Putin? Has either of you watched it?
I watched bits and pieces, and then I did read your summary about it.
Heather, did you watch it?
No, I watched a little bit. I watched bits and pieces. Also read your summary.
What are your guides saying about this interview?
Yeah. So again, they go high level. That none of these people that are over countries are actually in charge of their country. They're not the ones. Now, some of them might be given more or less leeway on what they do or what they're allowed to do, but our world is not being ran by our political leaders. They're not being ran by presidents and kings. Okay, they're just pawns. We have been manipulated to believe that they actually have the power, but they don't. They don't have the power. So what they were, because I was kind of curious, I do want to channel this formally, but my guides did share a little bit. You're not going to hear on mass media what the interview really was, right? They don't want you to see, is what they're saying right now. They don't want you to see what a coherent leader of a country sounds like, regardless of what you believe, whatever his policies are. I know nothing. I'm super out of politics. I know nothing because I know it's pointless. It doesn't matter. It's all a tool to manipulate us. So they don't want you to hear, because what the powers that were at the top of the globe, part of what they do is, and they do this with Hollywood too, they create a certain narrative about someone. So for instance, in Hollywood, if somebody in Hollywood no longer wants to go along with the narrative, for example, Mel Gibson, they will publicly create a smear campaign to make it so that he's no longer credible, right? Alcohol, drugs, whatever it is. So many people struggle with those things. So many people are treating people horribly in Hollywood. So why would Mel Gibson be blown up, for instance, right? So they create, because he went against the narrative. So they want you to believe certain things in order for you to continue creating the reality they want you to believe. They don't want you to hear, if they've been, and I don't know, I'm just getting this high level right now. They have been demonizing someone like Putin or whoever else, right? Now there's light and dark with everything, right? There's bad humans, good humans, right? There's people who cause pain, people who are light, but each one of us, we have the dark and the light. We have the potential to do both, right? So we've only heard negative, for instance, about him. They don't want you to see him as a human. They don't want you to see him as someone that's coherent and actually the reasons behind some of the things that he's done or the thoughts that he has, because then that makes you go, wait a minute, this is a little bit different than what I see in the news. This is a little bit different than what I've been told. Hold on.
Yep.
What? And then that, like what Sean does, what they show me Sean does, Sean dropping truth creates a fracture in someone's belief system, which allows more truth to come in. So if your belief system is fractured by watching that interview, it's going to allow more truth to come in. So they're saying they're going to try to demonize Tucker. They're going to try to derail him. They're going to try to smear him. Anyone like Tucker who's trying to get truth out, not that he's perfect. No one's perfect. Anytime someone is sharing information that goes against the narrative, their social media gets shut down. A smear campaign gets done. They might go missing. They might be gone. They don't want anyone to see another side. For instance, in this interview, they don't want anyone to see another side of someone who's been demonized, because that causes a fracture in your belief system, which allows more truth to come in. And the more truth that comes in, the more you wake up. And as you wake up, that allows these systems and structures to crumble. And they don't want that.
Well, I heard that I read today that he is now on a hit list. His life is now being threatened. What kind of crazy world are we living in? Why? And this is the thing that I don't understand with people. I have been doing my research, but if I wasn't, their reaction to all of this would make me go, what are you hiding? And this is what surprises me with people. You are seeing how they are trying to smother people whose narrative is not the same as theirs. But if you have nothing to hide, what does it matter? Why are you being censored? Why is he being censored? I am like, I don't put any energy into followers or who's watching me. I don't care about that. I'll make these videos, put them out there. And if 2 or 3 people benefit from it, I'm happy. So why would you be censoring me? So therein lies the guilt. Clearly, it's being so heavily policed because there are things that are being covered. And this is why I believe Sean, and this is why before he became my friend and I vetted him, I knew he was onto something. Same with you, Heather. And same with Carlos, although Carlos, he does not get involved in any of this. He does a lot of like energy clearing, stuff like that. But all of this is alien to him. He doesn't follow any of it, which is why I knew today Jesus was speaking to me. Because I watched, Carlos is 28, and he's doing a lot of these dances to music clearing energy. And the stuff he brought through today, I know he doesn't know any of it. He doesn't pay attention to it. And he said it himself. So I knew that Jesus came through. But can you believe our hour is up? What do you want to make sure we include in this session, Heather, before we wrap? And then I'll ask you the same, Sean.
Well, I would say, again, do your own research. Why do you believe everything you hear in the news? Why do you believe why do you believe everything you heard in church? Do you still believe in Santa Claus? No, something showed you that it wasn't real, and now you no longer believe in Santa Claus. Go do your own research and then make up your mind on what you believe. But if you go back, I don't know how much Sean talks about this, but I have seen other people talk about this a lot. If you go back over 100, 200 years of history, you will see that people who come out and share information that goes against the narrative, they're gone. They go away, right? So, I mean, how much more obvious can it get that there's a common theme here, that anybody who comes out, well, they're painted as conspiracy theorists, they're painted as crazy. You know, the old insane asylums, my guide showed me, the old insane asylums, they used to, anybody who went against the narrative at that time, for instance, was put in an insane asylum and locked up, and then their kids were taken and indoctrinated, right? So go do your own research and see anyone who's come out with potential, anyone who's found ways to get energy without having to pay an electricity company, right? They're gone. Anyone who comes up with a way to use a car or mobile transportation without gas, they're gone. How are all of these people who are going against the narrative and sharing tools like cures for cancer gone, right? I mean, literally, it's become so obvious. And this is the challenge with social media, is it's a threat to the narrative. This is why they're trying to shut down social media. This is why potentially there will be internet outages. We are in an age now that truth can get out to the masses and you can make up your own mind on what you believe. But if you go back and you look back over history of how many people have disappeared, OD'd, heart attacks, drowned, whatever, and look at their story and what they were doing. Kobe Bryant was getting ready to go to court to like share truth about something, right? A lot of people, even in just the last 20, 30 years, have gone missing. If you go and look at what was happening around the time that they went missing, they're going against the narrative. So when you do that research, let your be on it, be loving and patient with yourself, because when you start to wake up to the truth, it can be very, very overwhelming. But go do your own research, don't take our word for it, and start to ask questions of everything. Why do I keep hearing the same narrative? Why are certain people's social media is closing down? Why are all these people gone who had solutions for free energy or clean water or whatever it is? Why are they all going missing or dying? That should get your curiosity piqued enough to do more research. So I'd say do research.
You know, Heather, have you channeled Kobe?
No, he's on my list though.
Okay, good. So, you, Sean, your turn.
When doing your research, there is a systematic method that'll help you get to the bottom of things. It's not taught in school. The government purposely removed any of this stuff from the education systems, but it's called the trivium. And the trivium means where three roads meet. And the three roads are grammar, logic, and rhetoric. And grammar, logic, rhetoric, it basically means to systematically question information presented to you before accepting it as truth. And the grammar, logic, rhetoric is asking who, what, where, when, why, and how. When you ask those questions in that order before accepting something as truth, you will much more efficiently be able to determine whether or not it is factual or it is a lie or propaganda. But that's something that most people don't do, because the education system is what's called compulsory education. So for your whole childhood, you've been taught nothing but to memorize and regurgitate information rather than question its validity. But when you start going and applying this trivium method, what you're doing is you're undoing the old programming that's, for the most part, been dumbing people down, and you're replacing it with a new program and a new system that leads you to knowledge and wisdom and truth.
So very true. And I'm sure that you guys agree with me. We need to continue doing this. I really hope you can spare the time, because my friends are really learning a lot from the two of you. And like I said before, I feel the need to do this because a lot of the people that I share my segments with, they're afraid to go on TikTok. They've never heard of Rumble. So doing this is really helping to bring awareness to what's really going on. And as long as the two of you can afford the time, I will make the time for us to continue doing this. So before we wrap up completely, will you guys be available sometime soon for another segment? And which celebrity should we talk about? Britney Spears?
I think that's a good example, just because I channeled her soul contracts, and it helps us understand that what's going on in our reality, there's a lot more going on. And part of her soul contracts is to be the mirror to the collective, to show them that we are in a similar boat, where we are subject to what we're being told we have to do and the life we need to live. And so it'd be cool for me to share what I've channeled around her, what's really going on in her soul contracts. I feel like people have told me on my channel they came for Britney Spears and stayed for the other videos, and what they've heard, which is the whole reason why my guides told me to start sharing this stuff, has spurred their awakening. So when you understand how Britney Spears is actually also a mirror to the collective, and what you see on social media or out there is actually not even 1% true, what's going on, it starts to make you realize, what else in my reality where could this be happening to me? Where am I being told something that really it's totally false? And I need to recorrect my belief systems and how I look at my reality. So yeah,
John, would you be comfortable with that?
Yeah, I should be available again.
Okay. All right. So you guys can let me know when you'll be free again, and I'll wrap this up and then we can chat. So thank you for watching Conversations with Jennylyn. Sean and Heather are both such precious souls, because all of us are putting our necks out there to open your eyes. And I know that it's difficult, the information we are bringing. It's so like off the grail because it's so different, but it's the truth. And I'm really grateful that before I leave the planet, I'm awake. And that is my hope for everyone watching this. And like we keep telling you, go do your homework. You are getting a lot of nuggets from Sean and Heather, and today from Jesus. So take those nuggets, go do your homework. Sean has mentioned some resources for you. Heather brings information all the time from her guides. And so my hope is that more people will wake up to the truth. And we will see you again sometime soon with another segment. And this time, Heather will channel Britney Spears and the truth about this poor girl. And we will see you soon.
Broadcasting from Silicon Valley, California, this is Conversations with Jennylyn. Broadcasting from Silicon Valley, California, this is Conversations with Jennylyn.